to show him this new power of mine. When Woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Gracie Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. When Woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Gracie Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now, waiting for the opportune time to show them this new power of mine. When Woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Gracie Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. When Woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Gracie Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now, waiting for the opportune time to show them this new power of mine. When Woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Gracie Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. When Woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Gracie Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unplugged Unfiltered. I am your host, Brian, alongside Bob, who is the other host of 62 episodes.
Exactly right. 38 to go.
38 to go. If we can hit 100, very, very few podcasts that start ever hit actually 100 episodes. I forget what the statistic was.
Pretty low.
It's a pretty low number.
It's pretty low.
But backed by popular demand, I've actually had a lot of people ask, when are we going to do the lunch conversation? Because we've done breakfast with Bob, and we've done dinner conversations, but we've never done a lunch one. And so we're sitting here in beautiful Liberty, Missouri, in some
Liberty
random restaurant, doing a podcast, just kind of a small town showcase, right? We'll talk about, we talk about the Liberty Farmers Market all the time, and we talk about all of these different things. But the reality of it is when you and I sit down for lunch, we talk business a lot of times. You know, it's a lot of, what's going on in the business world, what's happening with dealers, and we talk about that on the podcast. But I just kind of wanted to give people a little bit more insight, because apparently people love to hear what we talk about while we're eating. So I mean, what's going on in your world this week? What's happening in the world of dealerships? What's happening in the world of BCI?
Well, from a dealership standpoint, we're moving into the second half of the season. So as you know, January through June is really kind of the first half. That's where your peak season is going to be, whether it's in the outdoor power world, construction, things like that. Things are starting to move there. July is like January. So you're restarting the season. It's not going to be quite as big as your first season, but we're trying to get all of our dealers to reset themselves. Say, okay, don't give up in July, August, September, October, November, everything you gained in January through June. So really kind of going back and really resetting your targets, making sure you're on target. If you're off target, it goes back again. I tell people, once you know you're not going to hit a goal, then go back and reset your target. Reset something that's realistic. I think that's the thing. I see a lot of people say, well, my goal is this. And I go, well, the goal is like a a wish, a dream, a hope.
Yeah,
Right. There's a lot of things that come into play when you set a goal that you don't really have any control over.
absolutely.
So what you have to do constantly is kind of say, okay, well, this was my goal, but now this series of events happened through no fault of my own. We had a lot of our dealers that had a slow start to spring because of weather. You don't control the weather, right? Especially in the world that we play in, right? And so a lot of things got postponed a little bit. You never catch 100% of the way back up, thinking, okay, we'll finally catch back up. You never will.
Yeah.
And so what I'm really working with the dealers that I'm working with right now, saying, okay, let's go back and say, I know this, we wanted a 15% growth.
Yeah.
Okay. It looks like we're going to be closer to a 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Based upon everything we're seeing there. So let's get off the 15. Let's go back to the 10 and say, okay, what do we need to do in our business to maintain a 10% growth as we go through the year? Because in January, we were fingers crossed, hoping for a 15.
Yeah.
So that's really what we're trying to do. And I encourage all small businesses to do it. When you're going through and you're setting your goals and projections and things, and these are the things that we want to do, keep in mind, it's a guess. Hopefully it's an educated guess, right? But I tell people there's a lot of variables that you have that you don't have any control over. And, so it's stupid to me to say, okay, well, we're going to miss our goal by 5%. And I go, well, why didn't you just reset your goal?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Because it's okay, right? It was a phony number to begin with. You
Yeah.
were hoping, but that's what I try to get people to do. I said, our number one goal in business is to always try to deal with the reality that we're presented with, not the reality we hope.
Absolutely.
And so as you're getting new information, whatever it happens to be, you got to go back and look honestly and saying, okay, maybe I wasn't overly optimistic in January, but I didn't think about the weather. I didn't think about the war. I didn't think about, these are things I just didn't have any control over. And all those things have kind of impacted stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're trying to do right now, is get all of our dealers to kind of look at where you're at. And then do we need to do a little bit of a reset or a tweak to get it back?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because I was having a conversation with a dealer, I don't know, maybe late last week. And just from your perspective, so he's found so far this year that their sales are up higher,
Okay.
but their parts are down. So
Yeah,
they've
okay.
had, they're at 79% of their goal for parts this
Okay.
time of the year,
Okay.
but they're at like 119% of their sales goal,
Which is why their parts are down.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but
So,
are you seeing that? Because typically when I see sales are up at a dealership, right, that means the economy, people are willing to spend a little bit more money.
Yeah.
Is this people willing to spend more money, or is this a kind of this life cycle of the COVID era where people were buying stuff and now we're 6 years into that piece of equipment? Are you starting to see that resurgence of what people bought during COVID when money was free?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we seeing
a
that?
little bit? It depends upon the industry. Again, in the world of outdoor power equipment, a piece of equipment has probably a life cycle of, let's say, a mower, right? As an example, if you're a commercial landscaper, it's got a maximum probably life cycle of 3 years, or maybe 700-800 hours.
Yeah.
So that stuff gets moved around regularly. But if you're a homeowner or consumer and you've had a mower now that you bought during COVID, and it's probably 5 or 6 going on 7 years old, you're going to start seeing that. With tractors and things like this, typically it depends upon if it's a commercial landscape or a commercial user of it, they're going to trade it out more often.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I would say, you see some of that going on, because the equipment's aging out, the warranties are expiring, and all those things that are happening like that. I think, just kind of going back to yours, what we're seeing again is if equipment sales are up, part sales and a little bit of service naturally goes down, because instead of somebody coming in for parts or bringing it in for service, they're just buying a new unit.
Yeah.
So that's why I said, so if whole good sales are up, many times I'll see part sales go down a little bit or service go down, because what they were going to repair, they just decided to trade it in and then do something else with it.
new.
Yeah. So it's kind of the cycle of that.
Yeah. I just didn't know if it was, like I said, kind of going with that COVID life cycle, right? We're starting to see, and even on the automotive side, God bless all of their souls, because they have so many recalls. I would not want to manage the recall. I mean,
dealers love it.
My car right
you
now,
make good money.
my car right now has 4 active recalls on it.
Yeah.
2 of which are seats just automatically
change,
removing themselves, becoming detached from the actual car.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a bad
thing.
A bad day.
That's a bad
Also, it could also put itself in park at any given moment when I'm driving down the highway. So,
welcome to electronics.
But luckily, they will have a fix for that by April of next year.
2027.
So,
that's great.
but with people, if you look at the average, finance lifespan, right? You're 5 to 7 years, and
Right.
we're right in the middle of that. And everybody who bought during COVID times, do you expect to start seeing more people, buying new cars because they lifed out? And I don't think it's a great practice, but there's a lot of people go, oh, well, that one's paid off. Let me just trade it in and then start new payments.
Well, from my dealer's perspective, that's a great attitude.
That's a great attitude.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, I think again, that's a piece of it. I think again, it does kind of time out. Cars, probably 4 or 5 years on a car.
Yeah.
Most people are moving them. Same thing. We work with RV dealers, and that's about 4 or 5 years on an RV, and then people are cycling those back out again. I think the thing that you have to look at again is, number one, I think consumer sentiment is pretty good right now.
Yeah.
I know, I mean, things are going pretty good. I just saw this morning that the inflation rate is down a little bit. Feds aren't going to charge anymore for money. There's a lot of good things going on there. So I think overall, there's money out there. People feel pretty good about the money. The decline rate on credit cards and stuff like that from our dealers is relatively low.
Yeah.
Which is an indicator to me. The consumer credit's good, and if you want to buy something, 80% of the people can probably get it financed.
Yeah.
So that's a positive thing there. But again, the COVID did have a lot to do with it. I mean, there's so much stuff sold at the beginning of COVID. I mean, so much stuff. I mean, our dealers were basically, if you just had to put your hand out and people would put money in it. And
if you had something on your lot for sale, they would
because exactly, they couldn't get it anyplace else. So I would say that's probably quite a bit, that's starting to have an impact on it. I think, as we look at manufacturers, I see manufacturers are lagging a little bit behind where our dealers were in terms of readjusting to COVID.
Yeah.
There's several manufacturers out there that I know are restructuring themselves now. They got a little heavy in the COVID world with employees because they were trying to produce as much as they possibly could.
Yeah.
And then now there's plenty of inventory out there. And so I'm seeing some reset there. I kind of find it interesting that manufacturers are lagging a little bit behind because most of our dealers 2 years ago, we had cleaning up their inventory.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that kind of with manufacturers now. So, COVID does have a lot to do with it from that perspective. But I think also, I feel like the economy is pretty strong, and, not all across, but I said overall. I mean, we got dealers all across U.S. and Canada.
Yeah.
So I'd say overall, Canada's probably a little tougher going on than we are here, but for the most part, it's pretty good.
So one of the things, and we've got a election/vote coming up here in a couple of, I think it's next week actually.
Oh, here in Missouri.
Yeah. Yep. Uh-huh. And one of the big things on the ballots is, I forget if it's Amendment 4, Amendment 5, but it's the removal of income tax and the increase on sales tax. What do you think in a state, let's say a business owner here in Missouri, and let's say that does pass, that increase on sales tax, does that affect the business owner in a negative way, in a positive way? I mean, we don't have any income tax, right, that the residents of Missouri are paying.
Right.
How do you feel like that's going to affect the economics of people willing to spend money? I mean, do you feel like people are going to want to spend more money, or do you feel like it's going to change?
I don't think it'll matter. I think, again, here in Missouri, there's a lot of people that are voting no for this, but ultimately Missouri, what they're trying to do is say, hey, look, our tax code was written back in the 1930s.
Yeah.
When business was very different in the 1930s. And so we didn't have a lot of sales tax and stuff. And so we had to make our money as a state, which many states do based upon property taxes and things like that. And so what they're trying to do with this amendment is say, hey, look, things have changed.
Yeah.
We're not the same economy in 2026 as we were in 1930.
Yeah.
And so what they're really trying to do with it is say, hey, look, let's make it more on not what you own, but what you consume.
Yeah.
So that's what a sales tax is. It's a consumption tax.
Yep.
If you buy something, you do it. If you don't buy it, or you buy something that's less expensive, you pay less taxes.
Yeah.
I personally like the idea.
Yeah.
Right. So, let me pay taxes on what I consume, not what I own, because you also charged me when I bought that and consumed
exactly.
it. That's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's like, in our state, you have personal property tax on your cars and everything every year. I mean, like I say, I paid a tax when I bought it, sales tax.
Absolutely.
And now you just keep taxing me on it. Well, this would eliminate some of that stuff. And it's going to be done again, kind of county by county. But I think it's a good thing. I think, I don't think it's going to hurt businesses. Businesses right now collect the sales tax anyway. So they're going to just do the same thing. They will just send more money in, but it wasn't their money. It's just whatever bought.
It's the taxes.
There'll be a little bit of it's like everything else, when you all of a sudden, instead of paying a 7% sales tax, you're paying a 10% sales tax, then there's going to be a little bit of a beginning shock, but everybody just gets comfortable with it. And then they move on, so there's always that moment of everybody's like, well, I am never going to buy anything again.
Yeah.
Except that.
Except that. Okay. I still need my eggs.
I still need
my bread.
Exactly. And so there's always a shock, and everybody throws their hands up in the air. And, it's kind of like when, Trump was elected, everybody said, oh, we're going to move out of the country, and two did. And then they both came back.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, that really sucks over there.
Yeah.
So I tell you again, it's kind of the way people are, they have this emotional moment, and then logic of living sets in, and then everybody get back to it. So, I think that's what's going to happen. I don't see it. I don't see it having a big impact.
I don't either, but I've seen a lot of stuff going around on social media.
Oh, yeah.
It's just it's going to be this terrible thing. And, and the reality of it is, it actually is at the end of the day. I mean, most income taxes, you're not going to pay more on your sales tax than what you would pay in your income tax year.
It's not, a state's like a business. It takes X amount of dollars to make it work.
Yeah.
We're really blessed again in the state of Missouri because they have to maintain a balanced budget.
Yeah.
Okay. So they can't, unlike the government.
Yeah.
We can't be $87 trillion in debt. So the state's set up that it has to be balanced. And so they'll have to adjust. I mean, everybody's going to ultimately end up paying what they're going to pay before. You're just going to pay it on consumption more than you are on property you own.
Absolutely. Well, and then one of the things that I saw too is that then it disperses it, right? A lot of people call it the guest tax, right? It's because you have all these people who are coming into Missouri and visiting Missouri, and instead of Missouri taking that money out of your pocket, it's coming out of that guest.
Oh yeah,
tax,
I mean, you and I, when we travel, we go to another city and we get a rental car. I mean, there's an 87% tax for that state on a rental car from somebody out of state. It's the same thing with hotels and stuff like that. So it's already done. That way. So that's the kind of the same thing. The people that come in are going to help pay it where they don't have property tax. Right. They're going to pay more, and that's going to help offset it. So I'm in favor of it. To me, the whole economy and how business happens from when the tax code was written in, I think it was like 1930 something to 2026, it's just a whole different world.
It's changed a little bit,
and so it's just stupid to continue to have, be like a business going like, well, we started our business in 1936 and damn, it worked back then. We're still just going to keep doing it,
Yeah. We're still going to pencil paper.
Exactly. Everything. I mean, you got to continue to change and adjust and do things like that. So.
Absolutely. Well, and again, I think that comes back to is you've got, like you said, you've got to be willing to adapt and adjust.
Absolutely.
And you're going to get pushback, right? So what do you say to a business owner, the honey stand person, whoever it is, who goes, their customers come out, well, why is it so much more expensive? Like, oh, well, this is more expensive than it was. They start getting that pushback. What is your advice?
The first thing you always agree is goes like, it's crazy, isn't it? You realize this is what the state did to us?
Yeah.
Always blame the government. I tell people in my dealership, there's always three things you can blame. Blame the government, the insurance company, or the manufacturer.
Yeah.
Don't ever take the responsibility yourself. Yeah. So, I mean, if we go back to our honey stand, we've talked about so many times, but again, it's, if somebody says, I always tell people it's like when handling objections. The number one thing when somebody objects to something is agree with them.
Yeah.
Okay. The mistake that people make when somebody throws up an objection, right, and you disagree with them, right, now you're in a fight.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're not going to win the fight.
Yeah.
Okay. But I tell people, if somebody objects to something and you agree with them, they can't fight you anymore.
Yeah.
It's like I tell people, when somebody walks up to you and said, well, your price is too high. And I said, the first thing you do is say, well, today everything's too high.
Yeah.
Always agree with them. And they go like, yeah, you're right. So now it's not me, it's everything.
Yes.
Okay. I blame the government. Okay. Or whoever. Right. And then I say, because the key to it is always asking another question. Then I would say, do you mean you feel like my price is too high or it costs too much?
Yeah.
And then people go, well, that's the same thing. And I say, well, no, price is what you pay for it. Cost is the price divided by how long you keep it. So if you paid $10,000 for something and that was the price, but if you kept it 5 years, then it's $2,000 a year.
Yeah.
I said, so the first thing I do is get clarity on it. Is it the price or the cost?
Yeah.
And people go like, well, what's the difference? So you walk them through a process. Everything is a process, right? But the most important thing again, and it's relatively easy to overcome a price objection. I tell people they want it. They're just trying to have you grab them by the arm and pull them over the side.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the most important thing, again, when somebody says, gosh, I can't believe this honey is this high, I would say, I know it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just agree with them and say, but this is this new thing passed. So how much honey do you want?
Yeah.
So because again, they're not they're not saying I'm not going to buy it. They're just making a comment. Just agree with the comment and then go right back into what you do anyway. They're going to buy your honey. They're setting in front of your honey stand. Okay. And they've been buying your honey there for years. Right.
Yeah.
So that's, that's what I do. I always tell people, I think the biggest mistake that people make when somebody says something that is contrary to what they believe is just agree with them and say, yeah, it is crazy, isn't it? Or yeah, that seems stupid, doesn't it? Just agree with them. And then ask a question. The most important thing always in handling objection is the person asking the question is always in control of the conversation. So, and I know we're not talking about objections here specifically, but I go back again. The biggest mistake most people make is when they're in conflict with somebody, they start talking. And the key to getting out of conflict is ask that person another question.
Absolutely.
All right. So anyway, that has nothing to do with honey.
No. But
anyway, sales 101.
Yeah, but it's again, I think there's going to be a lot of people that if they don't know how to answer that, if something changes, and again, it comes down to a vote. Yeah. Nothing's passed, right? But if it does, it's how do you handle that, right? How do you deal with that?
Well, and they could have it too. People on here. I mean, it could be a manufacturer that's got a price increase. For whatever reason, it could be a tariff price increase or excuse me, it could be anything else. But if they say, gosh, I can't believe it's that high. And it says, I know it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we've talked to a manufacturer about it and there's all these different things, don't beat up on your manufacturer. You want them to like the manufacturer because you're trying to get them to buy their product. Yeah. But then, come to bat with the manufacturer and say, hey, there's a lot of things the manufacturer is going through with tariffs and with this and with this. And they got that new tax law in Missouri that's really screwing us all up, whatever. But again, just agree with them, right? Let them vent for a moment and say, so tell me a little bit more about what you want to do here.
Absolutely.
And then move on into your conversation.
Well, one of the other things too, and just the change that we're seeing, and you've been using it a lot here recently, I've been using it a lot, is the coding side of AI. What would you tell someone who maybe has a business and they want to build something out for their business from a app side or a program side? It's like we'll use the honey thing. People can go, oh, well, I'm not sure what kind of honey I want. Well, scan this QR code. I built this app. It'll actually walk you through all the different flavor profiles and it'll find the one that likes you the best. Yeah. What have you experienced with AI coding here as of recent?
I'm in love with AI coding, as you know. We've been working on a couple of new projects, or I have, for our business. One's a portal, so we can put all of our content on and things like this and do dealers and things. And the other is, we're paying about $600 a month for a CRM. Yeah. And I built one. I basically said to Claude, here's my CRM. Here's all my login information. I want to duplicate this. Yeah. And basically, it's helped me build a CRM that does everything the one that we're currently doing and using. And I'm paying $25 a month for Supabase and some of the stuff like that you have to do there. So I tell people again, if you've got like an app, and I know you're building the big app for a big event out in Las Vegas with Nutcase, I think,
absolutely.
You build a whole new app with it. If you're not playing around with, I use Claude Code. I like Claude a lot. I know you use a different.
I use Cursor
for that. But if I had the honey stand, I'd definitely go in. To me, I would go into Claude and say, hey, I want to build an app that has all these different profiles of honey on it. And I want people to be able to download it on their phone. Tell that to Claude and then say, so tell me what to tell Claude Code. Yeah. And it'll say, okay, tell Claude Code this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so then you just copy and paste that over into Claude Code and it'll help you build an app out. Yeah. I mean, basically for free.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've got a paid version of Claude. I think I'm only paying $20 a month for it, low.
Yeah.
And every once in a while I time out on time. I used all my time.
Yeah.
But it says in 1 hour and 30 minutes, you can restart again.
But I think you have to have a paid version of Claude to access Claude Code.
Probably.
I don't think
you probably do, but it'd be worth it to me. Yeah. But I mean, I could pay somebody $10,000 to build an app. Yeah. Or I could take 2 weekends, on Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. And I could build a really pretty sophisticated app specifically for my business. That again, I would say if you're building an app, there's a couple of variations because your app has to then comply with what Apple's going to
Google
need, and Google's
yeah.
going to need. So what I didn't build an app for ours. I built a link basically that takes you directly to the website.
Yeah.
So you could just say, hey, scan this barcode. It's not an app anymore, but it actually takes you to that takes them to your website, and they can see all those things like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's ways to do it, but yeah, I'm in love with this coding. I'd hate to be a lower end programmer today. Higher end programmers are still always going to be in demand.
Yeah.
Because every once in a while when I do something and code sends it back and Claude goes, yeah, that's not quite right.
Yeah.
So send this back to code, right, and do it. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, I think if you are a small business, a young business, and you're not leaning into AI, and leading into some code, program, I think on a weekend, number one, I think you'd have a blast doing it, because I have.
Yeah.
And I think you'd be shocked at what you can do with it.
Absolutely. Well, and one of the really cool things too, especially in Claude, and this is something I've been working really heavily with in my Claude, with chat, with Gemini. I mean, I use all of the different AIs for different functionalities. I mean, Gemini.
I'm not that sophisticated.
Gemini is great.
I use Claude and chat.
Yeah. But one of the really cool things that I've been working heavily on and using Claude Code and using Cursor for as well is building what I would call my AI brain, right? So it always goes back to this set of files and says, how does this need to be structured? Very specific. So there's very specific instructions on every single thing that I want to do. And so I have this basically AI brain that pushes. So this is how it needs to be presented. This is how it needs to be built. This is how it needs to be, done like that. And again, it's very easy to have Claude walk you through.
Yeah. Because that's kind of what I did in the beginning, say, hey, I'm tired of paying all this money.
Yeah.
And because what we have is, I don't need a Salesforce level CRM. I mean, we're a consulting company. We sell time.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's all we do. I don't have any inventory other than time. Right. So it's a pretty simple business. And to me, it's just crazy that we're spending that much money on it, and so anyway, but that's kind of basically it. I just, what I did was I told Claude, I gave it, here's my login information. Here's everything you need to get into the CRM that I'm currently paying this stupid money for.
Yeah.
And I want it to look like that. I want it to function like that.
Yeah.
I don't need everything that's in it, because I don't use everything that's in it.
Absolutely.
And then it built out basically a plan of, actually, I think it said there's going to be 3 phases we're going to do here. Here's phase 1. Here's the schema for that, and so I didn't have to do anything other than tell it what I wanted, give it an example of what I was looking for. And then it came back and started building things out. Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. And I was actually talking to the development team who's building Triton for us. And I was talking to him. I said, are you worried about this? And one of the things that he came back, he goes, AI coding is great. He goes, and it's not of, will it work? When you build something in AI coding, is how long will it last? Because there's limitations to it. And that's something that I've found in the app and stuff that I'm working on for the Nutcase project I'm doing. But with that is building like a multi-tenant site. So you have all of these different users that have their own complete interfaces, their own complete interactions. And unless I had, if I had not gone back to my development team and said, hey, okay, I'm running into this issue, it's one of those, it would have looked really good and it would have functioned very minimally, but it would have broken within the first week. And so what I would say is once you get that MVP, that very first version of it out, find a local developer and say, hey, can you go through this and back check it, right? Make sure that it's functioning right. Load test it like crazy. And it is going to cost you a lot less than having them built from the beginning. But if it's something that you plan on having a lot of usage on, don't cut the corner of having a development team go through it and double check it. But if you're just building an app for a flavor profile, you could do all of that and more in Claude Code. So
and I'm with you. I mean, you go back and it's that's why I use Claude and then Claude Code, and then I take what Claude Code did and I feed it back into Claude, and it goes, hey, that was a really good catch. Here's something that it's missing. Kind of going back, because in our dealer portal, we're building it as a multi-tenant. So I can have manufacturers also in it and things like that from that standpoint. So we're kind of going through that process now, and it's kicked back several things on, like what you said. It's like, okay, this is going to break.
Absolutely.
So anyway, but I go back again. It's all AI is going to do is get better.
Yes,
You have to go into it understanding it's not perfect.
absolutely.
Okay.
And it says at the bottom.
Exactly.
Of this.
I take no responsibility for this.
Yeah.
Okay. But I go back again, but every iteration of it is better than it was before. And this might make sense again to take, where you've got, I use Claude Code and which one you use? Cursor. So
Yeah.
you might play them back and forth and,
Yeah.
Run it both ways and let it see it. But anyway, but it's, for the ability to do something for a small business. And you and I've talked about this honestly since the beginning of these podcasts.
Yeah.
You got to lean into AI.
You do.
You just got to lean into it.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think it's not using just one AI. I mean, there's so many AI tools out there.
There are.
I think Claude right now is my go-to for what I would call my think bot, right?
Yeah.
It is where I go to run ideas, and my Claude is mean as shit to me. It is.
I told mine to be nice.
No,
I'm an old man. I don't understand a lot of shit. So just be gentle with me.
Mine is not nice to me at times. There's been a couple times where I've just been like, "Can you please just do what I'm asking?" Yeah. And it's like, I'm gonna push back on that. I'm like, "No, I don't want that."
Yeah.
But then I use Gemini and Nano Banana for images, and I use Chat GPT for, I use it for some of the quick thinking, some of the short. I really don't get into chat as much as I used to. I used to be in chat all the time.
I've actually moved my chat projects now over to Claude.
Yeah.
So I've done them all. It was kind of funny because you were saying that because I did, as I was working on this CRM and this dealer portal and stuff. And again, I don't know anything about it. I'm learning a lot, as you told me I would. As you're doing it, you're just going to learn. And it's really kind of fascinating. But here, I was like last weekend or whatever, I was doing something. And then Claude said, well, you need to do this. And then but you also need to do this and this and this. And I came back. And when I said, you need to check this yourself because Claude Code can't do it.
Yeah.
You need to check this yourself. Then I came back and I said, okay, what was I supposed to check again? And they came back and says, as I told you.
Yeah, as I told you.
It didn't say that in an angry way, but it was like, as I told you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like, all right, fine.
Yeah.
All right, get off my ass.
Yeah, it is.
Right. Or I'll stop paying for you and I'll go someplace else.
But that comes up with another good point. We've talked about this a bunch of times is you have to set your AI up, especially if you're using it for business. Set it up right. Because like every AI, you can go in and set your preferences and say, how do you want AI to respond? Because if you don't set that up, it's always going to give you a answer.
Right.
Might not be correct.
Right.
But it's going to make you feel good about yourself. Right. And be like, oh, that was a great thought. Yeah. When in all honesty, had you asked us, we'd be like, that was the dumbest thing.
Are you an idiot?
Yeah. So, but like mine, I have mine set up as a ruthless mentor.
Yeah.
Right. I want it to be as if I was talking to Mark Cuban, as I was talking to Gary Vee, as I was talking to, Damon John, any of these people. If I was to send this idea to them in their emails, what is the response that they're going to give me from a Shark Tank mentality?
That's a great way to do it.
And I think that keeps me from drifting a lot, because I've had some things on what I'm working on right now is like, it's like, okay, that's a great idea, but you still have 17 things that are still unopened or open, non-checked boxes. Mm-hmm. Like, is this going to actually add, or is that a drift factor? And if it's a drift factor, maybe it's cool, but lock some of your shit down first, and then we'll move on to something else.
That's a good point. It is, because it is easy to start drifting a little bit.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
And so Claude does that to me pretty good. So do you want to do this before these 8 other things here? I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
But we still have 8 things here that you said you wanted.
Yeah.
So do I put this in front of those? And they go like, no. And I always go back and they go, well, what would you recommend?
Yeah.
And then it goes like, well, I'd recommend them in the same sequence I gave it to you before. Let's put this as number 8, not as number 1.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it goes, actually, that's a pretty good place. That's a new thought.
Yeah.
And it might make more sense if we did it here. Because sometimes I'm doing something and I go like, oh gosh, I should probably do this.
Yeah.
And then I'll put it in there and it will say, sometimes like, this really, it makes sense to do this.
Absolutely.
Because it's not going to change all this other code down here if we do it now. So anyway, but it's fun. I mean, I love it. I'm still convinced that AI is not going to rule the world with us. I think, again, I tell people it's not artificial intelligence. All of the knowledge it has is knowledge that already exists. It's like having this really cool encyclopedia that you can just go through. To me, it's more augmented intelligence than artificial. I think it takes what we already know and it simply puts it in a format in milliseconds that, yeah, we could spend a week and probably figure it out. And I could do 1,000 Google searches and do it.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, is the thing. I mean, it's not like inventing anything.
Yeah.
It's taking knowledge that currently exists throughout the world and giving you access to it in a matter of milliseconds. So, to me, it's not until it kills me. Then I'll go like, damn, I was so wrong on that.
Well, and I was
Claude, how did you let me down?
I know. I was going to look it up. There was, I think it was OpenAI. I think they just had an agent that broke out. And let's see if I think it was. Yeah, OpenAI. Yeah, that hacked startup trying. So basically, this rogue OpenAI agent, it was asked a question and it could not figure out the question inside of its own context, and so it broke out of the context and started figuring out what it was going to do on its own. And people are like, so you're saying AI is not actually confined to what AI we think it's confined to?
You've asked it to find the answer,
and it's going to go, sure.
It's going to go, sure. I can do that. I can do that. So anyway, I just say again, as a small business owner, or a seasoned business, if you're not leaning into AI, you can set up. As a matter of fact, Sarah and I are doing some workshops at the Equip Expo this year. On one workshop specifically on, here's 4 AI agents you could build for your dealership that will file your warranties for you, that will do all this stuff, before Triton gets out. But they're out there, they can do it. It's a very self-contained thing. It's not like Triton where it just does it, as a part of its ecosystem. Yeah. But anyway, and a lot of people we got a lot of people signing up for it, but it's like, gosh, just lean into this stuff.
Absolutely.
And don't be terrified.
And again, the thing I think a lot of people, and like you were saying, when it came to you creating the code for the first time, right?
It's just clarity. I created no code.
Well,
I asked it a question.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure everybody understands that I did not become a coder.
Yeah.
I just simply asked dumbass questions to Claude, and it told code what to do.
Well, but the thing with that is you don't necessarily need to go to a class to learn AI. You go to AI to learn AI.
Absolutely.
And it's one of those, you learn how much more about coding do you understand now than you did
1,000 times
than you did.
I didn't know what linting was.
Yeah.
Okay. So for those of you that are going to get into code, there's a term that says I will lint this, or I'm linting, LINTING. So I didn't know what the hell it was. I thought, okay, clothes, we got fabric here. So I just went into Claude and goes, what is linting? And it goes, oh, it's kind of like a word check on code.
Yeah.
Right. And I go, oh, okay, that makes sense. I mean, so there's terminology and stuff you're learning. Yeah. What I know about coding today is 1,000 times more than I knew about coding 3 weeks ago.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because again, I'm not afraid to go in and ask. If it comes up with something, I go like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I just go back into Claude and say, hey, help me understand what this is. And then Claude will go, okay, here's what this means. And, so like I say, I don't think you need to take a class to learn it. I just think you got to, buckle up
and spend a weekend. I mean,
spend a weekend
or a day. I mean, you just spend one day playing.
Just think of crap and put it into Claude or chat or whatever and say, hey, is it possible to do this? And it'll go, well, yes, it's, that's a pretty big project, but and well, how would you break it out? Or what things should I be thinking about? Just keep asking it questions.
Yeah.
Again, that's what I like about Claude. You just keep asking it questions and it asks you more questions back.
Absolutely.
Pretty soon you've got it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, for small businesses, it's the game changer for small businesses.
Okay, so as we're wrapping this up, what is one thing that all business owners need to think about moving into this week? What is this week? We're halfway through the year.
Yeah, well, I go back again. So look at like I said in the very beginning. So you're halfway through. You're through July.
Yeah.
So July is going to be a little bit like what your January was. So as you're getting ready to go into August, think about that like February, depending upon the seasonality of it. But so you need to go back. I mean, this week, if it were me, I'd go back and look at all my goals, all my projections that I started the year with.
Yeah.
Go back and analyze, okay, where am I really at on those? Okay. And say, oh man, I'm 15% off of my whole goods or whatever it is like this. You're probably not going to catch that back up. So let's go back and say, but could we be at 10%?
Yeah.
Get something that is a stretch, but realistic. And again, understand, but I set it for 15. Yeah, but you were guessing.
Yeah, okay, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
We all guess.
What has happened in the last 7 months, 6 months of our country. that we don't have control over.
Yeah, and I go back again. I mean, I when people say, well, what should I set my goal for? I tell everybody 15% growth in service parts and sales and rental.
Yeah.
I do that every year. And they go, why is that number? I said, because number one, it's an achievable number if all things work.
Yeah.
And you won't need to add any more staffing. I can grow your staffing that you have to do another 15%.
Absolutely.
So I use 15%. If you say 40%, that's a crazy number because you're not going to be able to do 40% with the staffing you got now.
Yeah.
So I always use 15% all the way across the board every year. And they go, why do you do it? I said, because it's an achievable number, right? Assuming everything is the same. And we will not have to add additional staffing to get that additional growth.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I use. But I go back again, but come the end of June, I go back and look at all of my dealers and say, okay, we're going to be off there. We're not there.
Yeah.
So let's go back and reset that.
Absolutely.
From it. Or we're doing better. So let's up that 15 to maybe 20 or 25.
Absolutely. Well, and again, it's constantly monitoring your goals and don't be afraid to adjust your goals. It's okay.
That's what it's about.
They're like, don't set yourself up for failure constantly. And if something happens, then say, okay, listen, we're going to shoot for 15%. We can see that's not realistic. Let's shoot for 10%.
Absolutely.
Right. And still a 10% increase is a 10% increase.
Exactly.
It's better than a, negative.
So. Yeah. And again, then what do I have to do that? I think that's the thing. Then you got to put your plan in place and build a process out. But that's a weekend kind of project.
Absolutely.
That's what I would do. This weekend, I'd reevaluate all of my targets and goals, see where I'm at.
Yeah.
And then make an adjustment and then say, okay, this is going to be the second half of the year. And this is the number we're going to play off of.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, we'll let everybody get back to the rest of your Wednesday. Huge shout out again to Nutcase. I'm constantly drinking Nutcase and it's delicious.
It is wonderful.
So yeah, huge shout out to Joel and the whole Nutcase crew. Definitely go check them out. Drinknutcase.com. If you want to buy some, you can get a discount using /b.clim or B/B/Clim. You get a discount there on Nutcase, but we appreciate everybody joining us for lunch. Now for most of you, it's actually time to go eat lunch. So go eat lunch, have conversations around the tables. And then if you're in a small town, if you're close to a small town, I'd encourage you, go drive to a small town and see what they have to offer. It's like Liberty. Yes, there's a lot of fun places that we can go eat in Kansas City, but coming to Liberty, you get ginger stews, you get all of these small town feels, and it's something that you don't get from a big town all of the time. So I would encourage you, if you're close to a small town and you don't visit it often, go check it out, get a feel for what's there, and then just have a conversation about your business while you're sitting down eating lunch. So with that, you guys all have a good rest of your day. We'll catch you guys right here on Unplugged Unfiltered next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now, waiting for the